another video. Welcome to Q&A Tech Edition number 2. And yes, I'm wearing the same outfit in my first Q&A, so I can see a lot of people pointing that out. But welcome back, everybody. And today I got a very special guest. Once again, you guys know me. I always shoot for the best, and I got the best. So joining me today is another one of the tech YouTubers that I've been watching for a little while now. He's a great individual. I love his content. He's about the same ideas that I believe in, getting the news, being straightforward, not being afraid to say what you want, and honestly just being 100% real. And his name is TechRant. And unfortunately, because he is at work, we're going to keep this a little short, but I do hope in the future we can meet again and do things in the future, you know, all that good stuff. So welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on, and I appreciate you taking the time out to answer some questions.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Nah, it's always a pleasure, man. Just like with Zolatech, it's always a pleasure when I can always get YouTubers that we share something similar, and it's always a pleasure. So, let's get right into it. Let's get to it. So, before we start questions and stuff, let's get a little background. So, I always like to let people take the time to explain who they are and just give a little brief intro. So, I'm going to let you take the floor, introduce yourself, let everybody know. Unless your subscribers already know who you are.
Background's kind of simple. Just, I got into tech and IT and stuff when I was young. And after military life, I got out and decided to get back into IT, and I'm in IT now. And I got on YouTube back in 2012. I really didn't take it seriously. I was kind of just trying whatever, but I started to get more into the tech space, and then I think I really started messing around with the channel maybe about 2 years ago, and really got more serious into it after about a year. And after a while, it was just like, I kind of got tired of like the same old tech where people never really hit stuff from a different point of view, and, a lot of cookie cutter stuff. So that's pretty much where I kind of came out with TechRant, and it was on ever since.
Wow. And I gotta tell you, we do share some similarities, although obviously you are much older than me, but you look good for your age. I don't know how old you are, but you look great, man. But I was in IT in high school, but I switched over to computer science, but I still did engineering. I'm in college now, so I've been doing all that stuff. So I wouldn't say I'm an IT expert. I'm more of the computer science. I like coding more. But I have been doing a lot of, dissections of products. For example, Windows, Linux, like software, hardware, but also learning how to program. So I guess you could say we both have some common ground there, and I think this will be actually a very fun show.
Oh, yeah.
So let's get right into it. So first question up for the Q&A is I want you to tell me your take on, this was actually I found this out today, so this was actually not supposed to be my first question, but I just wanted to ask it anyway. So I just read this article about how Apple is trying to stop a bill in California for them to allow users to repair their own phones. I don't know if you've heard this, but Apple has been known for making it impossible to go into your iPhone and also kind of repair it on your own because they don't want people fiddling or messing it up. Well, there's a bill being supposedly passed saying that you can now take your battery apart. You could replace your own battery, but Apple is trying to press against this because they believe that their products are not meant to be fiddled around with. So I want to know, on your opinion, what do you think of this, of them, if this is true that they are trying to stop this bill in effect for them? Because it doesn't just go for them. It goes for other things as well, other smartphones, but it mainly affects Apple because of their background with trying to keep people out of their smartphones. So what do you think about that?
Naturally, I would react to it and say that, Apple isn't exactly being noble here or whatnot. Now, looking at it from two perspectives, you look at it from a company's perspective, they want to make money, they want to keep their repairs and stuff going. So that's why a lot of these phones are designed the way that they are designed. Mm-hmm. The second part about it is, now, this is where I kind of agree with Apple, because technically, to really repair a phone, all you really need to do is just say, hey, I got a toolkit or whatnot. So, there's this worry about people, trying to get data off of your phone, or people, doing improper repairs, and then they're trying to bring it back to Apple and have Apple fix it. So I see that point. Mm-hmm. But overall, I see it as just as a, look, we don't want you touching our stuff. We want to fix it. That's cutting into our money.
Exactly. And, I agree with what you say, but I also want to add in something real fast. I'm not disagreeing with what you say, but I just want to add in another reason why they probably are against it. Because there are some people out there that do want to attempt their own things. There are people that build their own custom PCs. There are businesses that are certified to do this kind of stuff. So I can understand they're trying to probably save their money because they want to make money on these repairs. But the reason that I disagree with is there are some people that are certified to take apart an iPhone, and then there are people that aren't certified. Now, those people who know they can't do it are not going to bother because they know if they do it, it's going to cause so much more money to get a new phone or they could mess it up. But at the same time, there are people that are certified to do this. Although I do agree, though, with the aspect they will lose money. I think, personally, like, I don't know why they're going against it in one way, but I see the other side. They are a corporation. They have to make the money. But at the same time, if you're allowing users to learn and also to see what it's like to open up the inside of a phone, because you could use that to your advantage. Because now Apple could work with this patent or have something in their store, be like, oh, now we can teach you how to open up a smartphone, show you the internals, and maybe just give people a more general idea of why we tell you not to, but, you know, not say like this is why, but just show them, teach them, because I can see this as a learning opportunity. But I mean, personally, I've been to the Apple store out here on Staten Island, and they don't teach you anything. They just want your money. So really, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, okay, not trying to, like, you know, defend Apple in this or whatnot, but the other aspect to this is the liability aspect. So it's just like, okay, if you do teach somebody this, or if you do have a course or whatnot, there's all these disclaimers that need to be put in place, or all these, you know, hey, if you attempt this or if you do this, this could be at your own risk. And Apple is like, you know, already dodging enough lawsuits on stuff that they can't get right. So, I mean, there's many different facets to it, but just being an iPhone customer myself, being forced to have to either pay for AppleCare or pay the world's heftiest fee just to get something fixed is kind of ridiculous. Like, they charge you, what, $500 to repair glass on the back of the phone?
And what it is they're not even taking the glass off. They're just replacing the housing, or they just give you a brand new phone right on the spot. See, that's what most people also argue. That's the counter argument from most people, like Louis Rigman. I don't know if you know him. He does MacBook repairs. He made a video about this, and he's saying that tech repairers want to reuse the same housing because the same housing in the phone can be reused. It doesn't have to necessarily be broken, or it doesn't have to necessarily be defective. Like, for a battery example, if you break the ribbon cable, though, of the LCD or the OLED display, whichever model they decide to take apart, then you've got a problem. But if you're someone qualified enough to know how to do it, because I know Jerry Rigg, he does that all the time. I don't know, though, if he has certifications or anything, but I do know he knows more than the average consumer to take apart a smartphone. So for me, I feel like if you're going to attempt to do this, you would better make sure you know how to put it back, because you're losing the water resistant adhesive. You're taking apart a lot of things. That's only if you're willing to attempt it. That's why I say sometimes common sense is better than trying to attempt things, because common sense, nobody can beat that.
Right. But it's like they're kind of double dipping, because it's either A, you buy a phone, you get AppleCare, and then let's say it never breaks or whatever. Yeah, you had AppleCare, but you never could really use it or capitalize on it. Whereas on the opposite end, let's say you buy a phone, you don't get AppleCare, you break your phone, the cost of the repair is so high that they can look at you and say, oh, well, since you didn't have AppleCare, you might as well get a new phone anyway instead of repairing this old phone. And honestly, that adds to, you know, whatever sales or however many units that they made anyway. And then they could turn around and say, oh, well, you know, you can get rid of your old phone. You can trade it in. We'll give you a $100 gift card, and we'll add it to our Apple recycling program. And then the wheel just keeps turning from there. Yeah,
and you know something? My uncle actually said the same thing you did with AppleCare, because he's been an iPhone user. He's been an Apple user longer than me. He's had almost every iPhone. I think he skipped the 5S. But he's had every iPhone. He never broke it once. He never bought AppleCare, and the only time he ever had a battery replacement was for the 6S, and he did it outside of Apple, and he said that for the most part he didn't notice anything different, nothing wrong with it. So I guess you could say that falls into what you're saying, I assume, because, you know, my uncle is a different person. It's not, I can't really vouch, but for me personally, I've only ever broken my phone just once, and I never had AppleCare. I always had, like, my insurance through the carrier, T-Mobile, so I paid $99 a year, and I get 3 accidental damages, and then after that, you got to pay the rest. So this was considered accidental, so they just gave me a new phone because I paid the $99 a year, and you pay a deductible.
Right.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you know, that's just the thing that I've experienced, too, is that I've had multiple Apple devices, and some I had Apple Care with and some that I didn't. And I would sit there and think to myself, if I had bought Apple Care for every single device, for every single Apple device I ever owned, I'd be in like thousands of dollars of Apple Care, and I've only used Apple Care twice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know, like 8 different products.
Yeah, and I've made that mistake in my life, and I've learned my lesson from it because I have all Apple products: MacBook, iPhone, iPad, Apple TV, HomePods, and because I was such a fool and I fell for that whole Apple crap gimmick, I unfortunately bought the Apple Care, but it did come in handy though for one product though, and that was pretty much just my iPad. That was about it. But other than that, I've learned my lesson, so I'm never going to buy Apple Care unless I truly, really need it or I know I'm clumsy. Like, I feel like if you're going to buy Apple Care, you would have to feel like you have to assess yourself. Because, like, if you're going to go buy insurance for your phone, that means you know that you're going to break it. You know you're not, protective enough. Or sometimes it's better to just have the convenience. But if you really know you can protect your device, like for example, HomePod, I never bought Apple Care for that, so I'm happy I didn't buy any Apple Care for that, because the speakers have been over a year now, and they work just as fine. There's no issue, no lag, nothing. They're fine.
Yeah, I would say in the instances of buying Apple Care would be under these reasons. One, if you buy any of the desktop models, like any of the, like the iMacs and stuff like that,
yeah, I
would definitely get Apple Care because there's really no way to clean out the fans, and those things are sealed, and those things are harder to repair than regular MacBooks are.
Absolutely, yeah.
The other reason I would say is if you are ever leasing a device, let's say from Sprint or another carrier where you just make lease payments on there, then it would make sense to get the Apple Care on the phone, because you're not going to keep the phone. You're not going to keep the phone for very long, but if it's ever damaged or, whatever, and you need to have it fixed, at least that's kind of like better than the phone's insurance policy. You can get the phone back to them repaired as is. So that's the only times I can really see, somebody doing it.
Yeah, and that's actually very fair to say, and I actually agree with that. So we got to move on from that because we talk so much more about insurance. I think, honestly, at this point, everybody's going to be like, oh, we need insurance for everything now. But anyway, let's move on. Now let's go into Samsung. So a couple days ago, I made a video, you made a video about the exploding 5G. And when I first released it, I said in my first reaction, I said, Samsung, you better make sure you got this under control. And I never really blamed the Samsung. I was just saying in the thing, but everybody backlash. They all said you were wrong. It was not their fault. So then I further read it, and then I found out what they said, and I looked at the user, and then I came to my own conclusion where it said, something, maybe they didn't. This isn't Samsung's fault. And I made the clarification in my next video. I don't know if you've seen it, but I clarified everything, and I said this probably was just a third-party user problem because he probably was using a charger that it could have taken so much wattage and the device couldn't hold it, or it could have been, like they say, external. We don't know the extent of the story, but everybody now, because now the story is blowing up into proportions. I've been watching Unbox Therapy. Lou has made a podcast about it. He says he's on the fence. He thinks both sides are guilty, which is kind of fair to say in the scenario. But a lot of people now are starting to say that this is Samsung, that they're known for exploding phones, and that they're giving them a bad rep. And I mean, I feel bad for Samsung in a way because, like, the Galaxy Fold didn't go the way they thought, but that's the price you pay when you try to be first. But at least they were smart enough to delay it and get it worked on, which is something I give credit to. And as for the 5G, I don't think this will be a big issue because, like, I mean, it is a big issue that a phone will explode, but I don't think it'll be that big of a deal because Samsung is always on top of their stuff. They've had a lot of regulations. They've had a lot of battery changes in their phones, and they're making sure that this doesn't happen again. So I want to know, I've seen your video, and I've agreed what you said. I actually commented, you liked it, and I said somebody finally agrees with what I'm saying. So what do you have to say about these people blowing it up into proportion?
It's the popular thing to do because, so many jokes, so many memes, so much media coverage. I mean, even if you go back, they even had this whole thing where they banned the phone on planes. So the average person who sees something like this, they're going to definitely overreact. And then everybody else that, kind of hates Samsung as a brand or whatever, they're just piling on top of it. Like, people do this in tech all the time. Like, everybody, jumped all over Apple for Bendgate and, Samsung for the batteries. But it's like, okay, it's one isolated incident. right? And this is where I want people to put things in perspective. And like I said on Twitter earlier, I'm like, an iPhone XS Max blew up last year, but nobody knows about it. The only reason why I knew about it is because it was in the local news, because I'm in Ohio. They said that a phone had blew up in Columbus and it was an iPhone XS Max. And I'm like, okay, that's one incident, but people are just going to feel however they want to feel. Like, people still want to hold Samsung's feet to the fire about that, even though Samsung came out with an 8-step process. It's on their website. And, you know, it's like, okay, it was that phone that has a 4,500 milliamp hour battery. What about, did any of the S10s blow up? Did the S10e blow up? Did the S10 Plus blow up? Those all got large batteries in them.
Exactly.
So, and even the story doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because when you read the story, it's a very short account of events of, he had it on the table, it started to smoke, then he dropped it, then all of a sudden he takes it to Samsung. There was no other deep dive into that but the statement that Samsung made.
Yeah, and for me, I actually heard about that XS Max. Was it in the store, I believe? Was it a store incident, or was it actually a user?
I want to say he took it to a store, but I couldn't see in any of the articles where he took it to.
Because you know what it is?
He or she, I don't know, you know.
Yeah. But you know what it is like, for me, there was some red flags in that story. The first red flag was when he said he attempted to take it, to, like, touch it or something off the counter. Like, this is where, like, you pull the brakes. If you're going to touch something that's smoking, like, and you know it's going to burn, why touch it in the first place? Why not try to get, I mean, obviously I don't recommend this. I never recommend putting water on an electrical fire. Always try to find, you know, either salt or some kind of way, baking powder or something. But if you're going to attempt to stop it, you would know. Like, I feel like sometimes people don't have common sense. That's like why it bothers me, because, like, if you know the phone is smoking and you see it's engulfed, do you really think that touching it, picking it up is going to, like, you know, do anything to you? Like, I don't get why he tried to do that, and then he said he dropped it, which could have made it actually worse, because when you drop it, that's where the impact probably came in. That's where maybe Samsung came in and said external impact, because when he dropped it. So it really is a vague story, because we don't know everything, because this guy is giving his side. We don't know the full 100%. He's saying, I put it on a table, then it started smoking. Did he put it to charge, or was there something running? What was the scenario? And when he dropped it, maybe that's when it bursted. So I would probably say, don't go running out to assume Samsung as the fault here. Because it's always quick and easy to assume that a company is responsible for the damage. But sometimes, if you look at the full story, look at the full spectrum, maybe it's not all their fault. Like the woman with the Note 7 in the elevator. How she claims her phone went up in flames, and then it turned out it was a user, it was part of the user end fault. So, for me, it's like, try to hold off on blaming Samsung. Now, I did say, if we do start seeing this repeat, more like the Note, or also like the Galaxy Fold. Notice how people were getting that problem with the Galaxy Fold. That's why they delayed it. So if we start seeing more and more and more, then you've got something to say. But until we see that, I think it's easy to just hold off from bashing Samsung, and let's just let the phone release, and then we'll see. Because even then, like you said, 8-step process. Samsung's not going to make a phone that'll explode.
Right. And that's the thing is, like, you know, with that lady or whatever, that was the Note 9. Okay, that happened last year. That was the one device. The rest of the Note 9 sold. I mean, sure, you know, Samsung didn't have the performance and selling that they did, but people are still buying Note 9s. People are still using their Note 9s. I don't see anybody else running around saying, you know, I'm worried about my Note 9 blowing up.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I think Samsung's got this. I don't think this will be a big issue. I only think it will be a big issue only if it starts coming out more and more and more. Then there's something to talk about. But until then, we just gotta hold off and just let it be. Because look, Samsung, I think they took the device. I think they examined it. They saw it. So I didn't really read the rest of it because I was in the middle of, you know, setting up. But I remember that they did release that statement. So I'm just praying right now that this launch goes, because the phone is on pre-order at Verizon. It's going to come out in America now. So we're not in South Korea. We're going into America. So let's just wait and see. And that's all I gotta say about that. So now we get into story number 3, and then we got one more bonus story, and then I'm gonna end it early because I know you're working, so we'll have to continue this next time for a little longer when both you and I are free, because I also got MMA. So next story up is a Google story. I want to try to hit everything. I don't want to focus just on one company. I want to keep spreading. So let's focus on Google now. So the Google Pixel 3a, 3a XL. Now I don't know if you've been hearing a lot of buzz about this phone, but I mean they've been leaking their stuff at this point. I think honestly, before I go any. That noise honked out. It actually almost scared me for a second. But let's just pull a break before I even continue this question. Like, Android phone makers, please stop leaking your own stuff closer to the release, because, like, you're not building any fans, you're not building any hype, and OnePlus, you know I'm coming right at you. You can market a phone for $800, $900, but if you can't put wireless charging in it, I'm sorry, I'm not paying that much money. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But anyway, so the Pixel 3a, 3a XL. So the rumors keep coming up. The U.S. pricing is now supposed to be $399 for the 3A and $479 for the 3A XL. Now for the specs, they are not going to be using the Snapdragon 855, but will be using the Snapdragon 670. So not too bad, but it's still a reasonable chip. It'll have bigger display. I think I believe it'll have like I think the 3A XL might have a 6-inch. I don't remember the dimensions exactly, but I remember something along the lines of a 6-inch. It will have one camera. I think it'll have also a purple color, and it will have the fingerprint scanner as well. So the Pixel 3a and 3a XL. So this is kind of their version of a budget device. And I'm going to start this one off because I do have something I want to say about this. I think that this will be a good release for Google because I know their Pixel lineup has had a lot of mockery, especially with that 3XL, my god. But this phone, to me, might be the best Android phone, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if we know anything about Google and Android, because this is their own premier or premium model, well, not really, but in a sense, this is their phone. This is their baby. This is their go-to phone if you want to save money. They've got their cameras, which are, personally, in my opinion, the best cameras on a smartphone because I've seen comparisons. I think that they should be adding more cameras, but it's amazing what they can do with just one camera. I like the fact that it's obviously Android. That's their name, so as soon as update comes out, you get it first. And they know how to optimize for their phones as well. Now, whether that can be said about other smartphone makers, that's a different story. But for me, this will be the go-to device if I was to call because it retains everything that the Pixel 3 and the 3XL has, but also cutting down, but you really won't notice it as much. I mean, if you're really into all these, like, you know, giant numbers and stuff, like, oh, my phone's gotta be this fast, then just go buy, like, an XL or something, because, like, this phone is made for a specific audience. Not just your average consumer, but also for people that are trying to not break $1,000. Because I don't think people truly understand. Nobody used to pay $1,000 until 2 years ago. Well, I mean, unless you did, like, you know, extra storage and stuff, but still. I know the smartphone market has changed significantly. And the worst thing about it is that I don't think it's ever going to stop. I think that we're going to have to see this trend go on for a while because it's sad because the money you pay for a smartphone, you could have paid for a laptop, you could have paid for an actual computer, and you could probably get more work out of that. Although now they say your Samsung can be a DeX. So, I mean, there you go. Some clarification, I guess. I don't know. But still, for me, I think this might be the biggest Android phone for most users because it is a Google phone, so you will get the updates. But also, you will be getting some top-end stuff, but you really won't notice it unless you really, really examine it. So, for me, I think it's going to be a big release. I just want to know, what do you think of the 3A and 3A XL?
I don't hate it. Like, I actually think it has a place in the marketplace because as we've seen, companies have gone from just having one device to having multiple options. Like now we're having, you know, the entry level, we're having the mid range, and we're having the top tier. Mm-hmm. Samsung did it, Apple started to do it, and then now we're having that with Google. So I actually kind of look at this like a good thing. Like I'm trying not to look at this as a tech person because you already have the top tier Pixel or whatever that they're selling, so that's like their flagship or whatever. But this kind of opens up the doors to people who may want to try a Pixel, but they don't want to dump a lot of money into a Pixel. You also, this is the other thing I look into, and it's like Google's been big with coding and development and doing stuff with kids and doing stuff with schools. So this is kind of a more budget, cost-friendly way to get somebody who's younger or is on a budget into the door of development and doing apps and doing stuff with phones like that. But at the same time, I see the argument where people are like, well, you can buy it used, but not everybody has the ability or the option to go the used route. Sometimes they just want to actually just get a cheap phone through a carrier or whatnot. So I don't see it as a bad thing. Like the Pixel was never, to me, it was never a performance device. Like I don't see people doing extreme amounts of gaming on it.
Absolutely.
The biggest things about the Pixel is the camera features and stock Android. And if you're somebody out there that only cares about, still pictures, night sight, and stock Android, then it's kind of a good deal if you're just going bottom line price and you don't care about all the other, thrills of cell phones.
I agree with that, but I would like to add, though, that I feel like this would just be a good overall phone if you just want to try Android. Like, you don't have to drop a lot of money on an Android phone. And considering, like you say, a stock Android, you will get a better experience because the updates will be faster, and also this is Google. And Google, I mean, look, everybody likes to talk crap about Google, but let's be real here. We use Google Chrome. Some people use Google Word, Google Docs. They use a lot of Google stuff. So you got to remember, give Google slack. I mean, look, obviously they did have a trend to follow Apple. All these companies do, but they did it in the biggest way. When Apple took off the headphone jack, they just so happened to do it at their same release. I still never forgot that, but still, I think that this phone will be good for most consumers, especially if you're trying to get into Android, even as an entry level, but also as a phone itself. It'll do its job. You'll make your phone calls, you'll do your little texts, and it'll just be an easier device. You'll still get wireless charging, so you still get convenience, you get fast charging. I mean, if you really want to be a tech whiz and go into the specs, that's on you, but I'm talking in terms of average consumers. That's my whole goal, is not to be this guy who breaks down all the specs. It's a matter of the big bang for your dollar and also a sensible investment. And I think that something like this for $399, $479, not even going over that much money, I think that's a sensible investment if you want to try Android. And like you say, for kids, budget device, and also there are other places. They also did that with the iPad. Apple did that with their tablet lineup, although everybody claims they're back to what they were, confusing. I don't look at that confusing. I think it's pretty simple. If you want a budget device, like a budget tablet, but does the work well, you get your Apple Pencil, get the iPad 2018. If you want to step it up a little bit, but for something for home and portability, but you also get a better display and the pencil feature, you get the Mini. If you want something in between Pro, but also friendly, but, something nice and big, you get the Air. Because the Air is like in the in-between. That's their in-between. And then if you really want to go all out, you get the Pro. So for me, I see this being a good thing for Google. And when the Pixel 4 comes out, I've already talked about that with Zollotech. You guys can check that out if you want. We talked about how they're going to probably do the punch hole design. And also they're going to maybe putting 2 cameras in their phone. So it's about time Google starts to catch up with their cameras, because even though they do phenomenal with just one lens, they could do so much more if they just add another lens. And I don't know what you think about that.
Right.
If, like,
the
adding
thing that a lot of people forget about Google is that they don't have to sell phones to be successful. Like that's the thing. They don't have to sell phones. Even Samsung, they really don't have to sell. They really don't have to sell phones to be successful. They got washers, dryers, TVs, and everything else. So it's like, that's kind of like, it's like the good thing but bad thing about Google. Like, they don't need the phone to survive, but a lot of people would be happier if they put more emphasis on the phone.
Exactly. And what's cool is, like, there are, like, Apple, the thing is, they're all about the tech. Samsung, obviously, they've got their whole foundation. And even Sony, they have phones. They don't press it, though. They got TVs, PlayStation. That's their biggest one, PlayStation. Microsoft tried it, but their phone division obviously didn't work out as what they wanted. But they got Xbox, Windows, and a lot of things. So, you're right. And you're right. And last question, because I think you've got to go soon, or we still got a couple more minutes?
Yeah, I got to go in a little bit.
All right, let me finish this up real fast. This is the last question, guys. And again, guys, we'll try to do this later on when we both have free time. But I want to be respectful. You got to get ready to go. So last question up of the day is really not anything special. I was going to have a lot of things planned, but my subscribers never asked me. I usually do fan questions. But I will have one prepared if we do this again. And I promise you they will have a lot of questions. Because they had for Zollotech, and I've already told them about you. But I didn't hear back from anybody yet. Although if they do message me back now, it's too late. But anyway, last question. This one is going to the OnePlus event. This is we're gonna top this off, knock it off, and then we're gonna get going. So OnePlus event is 2 weeks away. It's in the city. That we obviously know the OnePlus 7, OnePlus 7 Pro. I've talked about how I don't think it's a good investment because if you're gonna be paying premium dollars and not get wireless charging, it's not just wireless charging as a whole, but also the idea that you want to charge premium but you can't put a premium. For me, OnePlus is not a premium brand yet. I think that they're on their way to that part, but I think they just got to keep working it slowly because they've been known for giving you top-end specs and a good price in a phone. But this Pro has some compelling things about it, obviously. It will have dual speakers, rumored dual speakers. That'll be the first OnePlus with a dual speaker. It will have, I believe, triple camera setup. It will have a full screen with a pop-up camera. And for me, I've always been a fan of the pop-up, but I just don't know how the U.S. market will react to that. Because I know people in Europe and in Asia, they are in love with that kind of stuff, like Oppo and Vivo. So I don't know how the U.S. market's going to react to that. But for me, I'm a little lost because they're trying to promote this as a better phone than everything out there. And I'm not a big fan of their marketing for this phone. So I want to ask you, do you think OnePlus is making a sensible idea to start putting their phones at a premium price like Apple and Samsung at this stage in the game?
Well, it's kind of a, how do I put this? It's a good question to ask. I see it as looking at it two problems with OnePlus, and this is what they're just going to run into either way. Either you price it low and you put all this stuff in there, but you don't get a good profit margin, so it's kind of hard to do, and you're sacrificing money for that, which is bad for any company. But the public perception is if it's cheap, like if it doesn't cost a lot of money, then it's not a good phone. It might not last or stuff like that. But then if you start to increase the price, then people are like, well, who are you? You guys just came out of nowhere. How could you do that? So it's like they're really kind of getting hit from both sides, but it's kind of like a necessary evil right now because they only have two options. You just got the 7 and you got the 7 Plus or the 7T or whichever one that they're going to call it.
They're calling it.
Now, if they start selling more and they get into more carriers like Sprint and AT&T and stuff like that, and they can spread that out and then they can make more phones, then they can say, okay, here's our expensive option, here's our mid-range option, now you can choose between the two. But for right now, I say the price that they're asking for really isn't that bad because you're paying a little bit more than what, a S10e, but you're getting all this stuff in there. Like, there's a lot of people on T-Mobile that love OnePlus.
Oh, yeah. I won't take that away. I think OnePlus is doing well for T-Mobile, but I think that if they do expand, because that is the rumor, they may be going to more carriers now. So if they do that, they'll definitely pick up more customers. I like OnePlus. I think that what they're asking for their phones are reasonable. I don't see the issue. Everyone says, oh, $750, $800 is a lot of money. Guys, compared to what we're seeing from Apple and Samsung and other companies, you should really be thankful they're pricing them at $550. I mean, okay, yeah, they don't have wireless charging, but it doesn't matter. You could literally just plug your phone in. It's good to go.
Right, and that's, what is it? Is that 810 or 820 like the top end for their phone?
I don't know. I assume because they're trying to say that that this version can do like what not most smartphones can do. Like for example, it can take in 30 watts of power and charge your phone up to 100%.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I would say this: if the most that OnePlus was charging with all of their features and storage options and everything, if the most that they were charging was $850, that's awesome because if you go with iPhone, you can have a 5.8-inch screen that turns up to about, what, $1,400 just with storage options?
And honestly, they better reevaluate that assessment with the iPhone 10 and 10s, 10, whatever, because next year they got a whole way to try to compel people to switch. So they got to work on that.
But that's the thing is like, people are gonna try and compare that. They're like, oh well, this phone goes up to $810, another $200 you can get an iPhone. I'm like, yeah, but you're getting the base model iPhone.
Exactly. And you know what's
So
sad?
it all depends.
And you know what? The last thing I'll say before we gotta go is that Apple, you know, they price their phones at this so much money, and while they do last a long time, I'll give them that. Ultimately, the value of the phone goes down. So in the 5 years you keep the phone, let's say somebody actually does do that, you won't get anything for it, unless of course you resell it in the like eBay or something. So for me, I feel like if Apple's gonna sell their phones, they better readjust the pricing. So like for next year, the 10R2, whatever they're gonna call that, just leave that at $750. Include something because it doesn't cost that much to produce. So if you add a few extra dollars, you still make a profit. The 10s or the iPhone 11, I said that like the base model should be $899, like Samsung did it. That'd be $899. Then you make the plus version $999, because then you'd make an easier assumption. You'd be like, okay, you're spending $1,000, but at least you're getting a bigger display. You get a little bit more bang for your dollar, I assume.
Right. The only way I see the prices of iPhones coming back down or not exceeding is that Apple has to replace whatever revenue that they're losing with their iPhones with their services. Like, if their services take off and they're making all this money, then sure, they'll probably, lean back a little bit and, they won't care as much. But as long as you got to be beholden to stockholders and, keeping the money train going, that's pretty much where we're going to be at, because you can't get an iPhone anywhere else.
Absolutely. And even if you try, you're never going to get any bargain for it. So, I mean,
Right.
it's rough. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I think that's the new Apple. This whole streaming platform, their services, is the new Apple. I think that's like where they draw the line. It's like that's Tim Cook's Apple now. It's no longer, oh, it's Steve Jobs, oh, it's Tim Cook in there now. This is the official Tim Cook Apple. I've been waiting for years to say it, but this is the time, because this is the year that this is what will define Tim Cook as a CEO. Because he's running Apple now. We've known that for so long, but now we see what his Apple is shaping to be like. It's going towards services, and it won't push hardware as much. I mean, that's okay, because honestly, I use Apple Music, but they better not forget what made them Apple. The Mac, the iPhone, everything. Just don't forget what made you Apple. That's all I would say to that. But, I mean, and again, our opinions mean nothing if they're almost $1 trillion company.
Right, like I said it before, they literally have so much cash that they could make the dumbest phone in history for the next 10 years and they'd still be fine.
And people would still buy it.
Yep.
And like, I'm not trying to trash Apple or anything, but like realistically, you gotta think realistically. That's what I tell people. You can only defend things up to an extent, but there's one thing you can't defend is stupidity. You really cannot defend that. I'm not saying Apple's stupid,
Right.
but I'm just saying as a general, as a general thing. So that's gonna do it. All right. Well, we definitely this was definitely one of my shorter ones, but we definitely had some good talk. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I can't believe I've been doing this for 2 years, and I've been able to get 2 big YouTubers. One of them I watch a lot, and you I've been watching for a while now. So it's great to get people that I watch and come on and interact with them. It's always great. You are definitely amazing, and you definitely know a lot more than I do. So that shows me one thing: gotta keep studying. But anyway,
Thanks, man.
But before we go, I just want to give out a closing statement. One last thank you as well. Thank you once again. I really appreciate you taking your time out. And if you ever want to come back, if you ever want to collab again, we could talk about anything. You are more than welcome to. Just like with Zollotech, I always offer. The offer's on the table. If you ever want to come back or anything, it's more than up to you.
Oh yeah, it's no problem, man. Thank you.
Nah. All right, I'll let you close out. Any last minute things you got to say?
What was that? You kind of cut out a little bit.
I said anything you want to say? Like, I'll let you close out.
Oh no, just like I said, just trying to open people's eyes to different views of tech, and have more of a conversation about it. So
Absolutely.
that's really about it.
All right. Well, thank you once again. And to all my subscribers, please check this man out. He is amazing. I will leave a link in the description to his channel. Please, he is awesome. I definitely see him. I see you as an up and coming. You are going to be big. I can see it from now. So please, guys, go check his channel out. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know down below. Do you agree with what we had to say? Anything you want to see next time? And as always, hit that like button. Subscribe for more content. And peace.
I